Next on Arizona 360, a closer look at the death penalty and one county prosecutor's reasons for opposing capital punishment.
If people really knew what the system was about, they would say, we don't need this.
A former mayor of Tucson of the powers of the office.
There's also the kind of power that you steal.
And we hear from candidates vying for the position.
I can take the wheel from Mayor Rothschild from day one.
Hello and welcome to Arizona 360. I'm Lorraine Rivera. Thank you for joining us. At this moment, 116 inmates are sitting on Arizona's death row. This week, the Supreme Court agreed to hear the appeal of one of those inmates who was sentenced to death for the murders of two people nearly 30 years ago. We explored the time, money, and emotional toll associated with capital punishment with those who have close knowledge of the system. First, an overview of Arizona's death row. Since 1910, Arizona has carried out 100 executions by hanging, lethal gas, and lethal injection. For a 30-year stretch from 1962 to 1992, the state did not perform any executions. During that time, it revised its statutes to comply with several court rulings over the constitutionality of the death penalty. The last execution happened nearly 5 years ago when Joseph Wood died by lethal injection for the 1989 murders of his ex-girlfriend Debbie Dietz and her father Gene in Tucson. In Pima County, longtime prosecutor Rick Unklesby argued cases that resulted in 16 death sentences. In his new book, Arbitrary Death, he revisits 9 cases where his office sought the death penalty. Unklesby also delves into why he no longer supports capital punishment. We discuss those reasons. So I read the book, and I think it's fair to say you had a change of heart when you talk about capital punishment as you started as a prosecutor to now. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I mean, I don't consider myself an abolitionist. I mean, as a prosecutor, what we do is we try to enforce the laws that people have passed through their legislators. And right now, and for the past several decades, Arizona has had the death penalty. And so our job as prosecutors is to enforce the law that folks want on the books. But having worked in the system for, I mean, I've been a prosecutor for 38 years or so, and having worked in the system for that long and seen how these cases proceed, it strikes me that if people really knew what the system was about, they would say, we don't need this. We have an alternative of natural life, and isn't that sufficient? And part of it was just having seen what victims go through. And I mean, I've had cases that have come back where I wasn't the original prosecutor, but 30 years later, they are back in court for a retrial because some court during their review has decided that, for example, the defendant didn't get effective assistance of counsel. And the toll on the victims is enormous. When they think things are done, the case is over, only to find out decades later that we've got to retry the case.
Paint a picture for me. How long can a case take? I mean, because this is not something that can just happen the moment after the crime is committed and the person's found guilty.
Well, I think right now the average time from sentencing and someone who gets the death penalty until execution is almost 20 years. And that's the average time. There are many cases, several from Pima County, whose cases have been on appeal for over 30 years. So it is a very long process.
Why does it take so long?
There are a lot of reasons for that, but there are multiple steps in the appeals process. They start with an appeal to the Arizona Supreme Court. It stays in state court for a number of years before it gets into federal court. And then there are multiple steps there. So, for example, Arizona is in the 9th Circuit Court of Appeals District. And that's in San Francisco, and so cases can linger there or languish there for years and years before the 9th Circuit makes a decision.
Unklesby estimates fees for court-appointed attorneys assigned to help death row inmates through the lengthy appeals process can add up to several $1 million.
At the very low end, at a minimum of $1 million, but I mean that's really the very low end. I mean it's more likely that it is $3, $4, $5 million over the course of the appeal.
You mentioned a number of cases that you covered during your career. all of them heinous, but not everybody will end up on death row. So what are some of the factors that play into that?
Well, statutorily, we have a number of what are called aggravating factors. And the prosecution, in addition to proving the first-degree murder, the prosecution has to prove at least one aggravating factor to make it a death penalty case. So we have a panel that meets in the county attorney's office whenever a case might be considered as a capital one, a death penalty case. And we discuss it. We discuss the mitigating factors, what's going on in the person's life that might steer us not to seek the death penalty, and then look at the aggravating factors and what might support filing a capital notice in the case.
The person's past, though, their criminal history, their mental status, all those things play into this.
Sure. Prior mental health history is a big issue for us. If someone has a history of mental illness, it's something that we want to take into consideration now, because that may steer us towards not filing a capital notice. Someone's criminal history, if they've got a violent past, those are considerations that we would consider also.
Who belongs on death row? Because anybody who commits a crime, a murder, there are people who feel one way or another on that.
Yeah, and you know, we invite input from law enforcement that has investigated the case. We invite input from the victim's family about how they feel about it. But ultimately, it's the prosecutor's decision, and it has to be, and it's based on our past experience of where this case fits in the long string of cases that we've considered. And you know, we look at the legal guidelines that not only our Supreme Court but the U.S. Supreme Court has set forth, guiding us which kinds of cases or what specific cases might be subjected to the death penalty.
One of the 100-plus murder cases Uncles Bay prosecuted included the 1999 murders of 3 employees at a Pizza Hut in Tucson. Convicted killers Christopher Bo Herstel and Kajorn Sack Tom Prasserfong initially received death sentences, but through retrials and plea deals, Herstel's sentence was reduced to 25 years, and Prasserfong got life. Kathy Weir followed every step of the trials. Her brother, 44-year-old Robert Curry, was one of the victims. She told us how the drawn-out legal process shaped her view of capital punishment.
You know, looking back, I don't think I had strong feelings one way or the other about the death penalty. I probably supported it at the time. Victims can only talk 2 different times to the court, and that's during a bail hearing and sentencing. So when it came time for sentencing, our family requested natural life. And probably the primary reason for that was to have an underlying life sentence in case something changed that would override the death sentences, that they would still be in prison for life.
This is a case that went to trial more than once. Mm-hmm. An emotional toll for you?
Yes, it pretty much consumed my life for 8 years. And what people don't understand, well, in my case, I owned my own business, so I had the flexibility to be away from work, but it cost our company a lot of money. I had always put the business first, and for the first time in my life, the business became secondary. This was important to me because we're the voice for those people. We sat behind Rick to support Bob, Lisa, and Jim, that someone was there for them. They loved them, they cared for them, and to show the judge that we cared for them. And that's something that I think we should do, and I still speak out about it because of the fact that today, more than ever, what families are going through across this entire country, when there is these senseless murders that are happening, particularly the mass murders, I just grieve for those families. And it's more what I know they're going to face than the loss of their loved ones. The loss of losing someone is horrendous. But what the court system can do to you is even worse, because it all comes down to the rights of the defendant. And the defendant is, you know, the accused until the court case is settled and then he's finally guilty. But it's sad the amount of resources that we put in on the back end for these people as opposed to putting it in on the front end to prevent these things from happening.
Kathy, it's been 20 long years. One of the murderers may see the light of day, and you're still here wondering how did this happen? That's got to be a painful feeling to know that one of them could be out soon.
Well, unless something happens in the next 5 years, he will get released. What's frightening is he went into prison as a sociopath. He basically was raised in the prison system. When you look through his infractions, when you go to inmate data search, you can see the infractions that he's had. You see the tattoos that he's developed. I mean, what kind of rehabilitation has he had? These were two kids who made a stupid mistake. That's basically what it was. My brother was very experienced. He was mature. He would have given them the money. There was no reason to kill all of them, but they made a bad mistake, and a lot of people had to pay the price for it. But what's sad is he's going to come out feeling that he was victimized all those years, and who knows what kind of crime he might commit when he does come out.
You mentioned your brother Bob, a husband and a father at the time. How are you remembering him?
Well, he was, he loved to make jokes. He was a practical joker. There was no holiday that didn't require fireworks. His family came first. He was very compassionate.
Your brother was shot and killed with 2 others during the commission of a robbery. In your mind, what would make this right? How could justice be done?
It can't be. I think in the case of Bo Hurstel, I called him a throwaway kid. He had a biological father. His Stacy's first husband adopted him, but he only lived with them for a couple of weeks. He was raised by his grandparents. And so, what was his upbringing? And even though his grandparents loved him, and probably his mother did too, but we don't know what the environment is. And we're not investing in education. I don't think he was very literate. I don't think he had good grades in school. And we're not instilling those kind of values that education's important, stability in the home is important, literacy is important, and if we could concentrate on the front end, things would improve on the back end. It's like if you don't change your oil in the car, eventually you're going to have to buy a new car. So isn't it a little bit better to spend money every few months on oil? But we still haven't learned that lesson, that we need to value our children.
Okay. Kathy, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
As we mentioned, the last execution in Arizona happened in 2014. Joseph Wood's death came by lethal injection, and it came under national scrutiny because it took 2 hours and several injections of the drugs for him to die. Michael Kiefer covered that execution. He has reported on Arizona's criminal justice system for nearly 20 years. Michael joins us now from Phoenix. Michael, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Does Wood's execution have anything to do with the holding pattern that we're seeing with executions overall in Arizona?
Well, it has everything to do with it. In fact, the litigation began before the execution was even over. As we were sitting wondering what was going to happen as this man gasped on the gurney, Dale Bache from the Federal Public Defender's Office sent one of his attorneys out to call the judge. They, in fact, injected Joe Wood 15 times. A single dose was supposed to be lethal. But then after that, the judge, this sort of was the straw that broke the camel's back. That federal judge had allowed the Arizona Department of Correction a whole lot of leeway in earlier executions. And at that point, he ordered that everything be analyzed and litigated. The other thing that happened is that they restricted in Arizona the drugs that can be used. They can use single drug applications of sodium thiopental, which is really not available in this country, or pentobarbital, which can be obtained through through certain compounding pharmacies, but the companies that make it will not sell it for execution. So the litigation is over, the holding pattern remains, and frankly, nobody but the Department of Corrections in the state know when they're going to resume.
So if the death penalty is technically still on hold, where would these drugs come from then?
Well, this has been a matter of dispute. In 2010, for that Jeffrey Landrigan execution, the state brought drugs in from England, sort of through a back door that was not entirely legal. The DEA and the FDA eventually shut that down. Sodium thiopental cannot be imported into this country for medical use. They switched to pentobarbital, which was made by a Danish company. People in the European Economic Community cannot participate in executions anywhere in the world, so it's basically illegal there for them to sell the drugs. And after that, other pharmaceutical companies stopped making other drugs available. It's just not really good marketing to be, the company that makes drugs to kill people. So Arizona and Texas and Nebraska then tried to bring it in again secretly from India in 2015, and they got caught. Texas went to court over this. In the meantime, the most recent thing that happened is in May, the Department of Justice, apparently at the request of the Food and Drug Administration, said, hey, Food and Drug Administration, you don't have to be the boss of drugs brought in for executions. So that opens up the door for drugs to come in from other countries to be used in executions, and whether that's happened already or not, we don't know, because all these things are carried out secretly.
If it's expensive and it takes time, why is it still a factor here in the state of Arizona?
What I've always said is the less you know about the death penalty, the more solid are your opinions, for or against. When you start getting down into the nitty-gritty gray areas, the randomness of it, as to, we are at a point now, it has already been challenged, it's gone up to the U.S. Supreme Court, it's likely going back, the notion that there are so many aggravating factors that qualify a homicide as a death penalty case, that it's no longer really reserved for the worst of the worst. I've said to people before, because I cover this, it's assumed that I'm against the death penalty. I'm not really in principle, but I think it is so unworkable, untenable as to be useless.
Okay, Michael Kiefer joining us from Phoenix. Thank you.
Thank you.
As we near Tucson's primary election in August, we'll introduce you to the candidates running for mayor who will appear on the ballot. That includes a three-way race between Democrats Randy Dorman, Steve Farley, and Regina Romero, one of whom will face the independent Ed Ackerley in the general election this November. As for how the winner could shape the city's future, we turn to someone who once held the job. Thomas Volgy served as mayor from 1987 to 1991 and is now a professor at the University of Arizona School of Government and Public Policy. He offered this insight. You once served as mayor. What sorts of powers did you actually have?
There are formal powers for the mayor, which means that he or she is a chief policymaker of the city, represents the city outside of the city, tries to steer policy issues. Those are legal powers. There's also the kind of power that you steal, which is to make sure that there's appropriate oversight over the administration, over the city manager, and how the policies are actually being executed. That becomes really ambiguous because the charter is not very clear about the authority that the mayor really has. But if you steal enough of that power, then you can make sure that what it is that you want to accomplish actually tries to get accomplished.
You ran for mayor in the late 80s, so you served back late 80s, early 90s, some 30 years ago. Has funding a campaign changed since that time?
Well, it has changed in some dramatic ways because the media have changed and the ability to communicate with voters has changed. What is possible in Tucson is that you can run a grassroots campaign. I did some 200 coffees in my campaign, which meant that we reached out to all the corners of the community and had direct experience with individual voters. Right now, if you run a media campaign, it is going to be overwhelmingly expensive. And you're going to lose touch with what the voters really want because you're talking to them, you're not giving them an opportunity to talk to you.
Funding those campaigns, is it very different than what we see nowadays?
Well, in many cities it is. Fortunately for us, we, the public, actually amended the charter of the city to create campaign finance reform in Tucson. And what that practically does is limit the amount of money that you can spend, and in return your primary contribution comes from the public anonymously rather than from special interests. It's an optional process though. Right now 2 to 3 candidates have not opted to be in there, which means that potentially they're going to be raising vast amounts of money and potentially altering this entire process, and that becomes really, really dangerous for us.
What's the average cost for funding a campaign to be mayor of Tucson?
Well, if you do public funding, it's going to cost no more than about $1 per voter. If you do not accept public funding, you could be spending 10 times that much. And that money is no longer going to be coming from you and me. It's going to be coming from very special interests and very wealthy individuals.
Okay. What sorts of qualities does an effective candidate need to get elected and then actually be valuable once they're on the council?
You need to be able to appear politically attractive to voters in order to run successfully, and simply work very, very hard. Once you're in office, you've got to be innovative, creative, be willing to take risks, and as weird as it sounds, work really, really hard. If you're going to do this, it means work 14 hours a day, 7 days a week, from the time you enter until the time you leave. It is more than a full-time job.
All right, Tom Volgy, former mayor of Tucson, thank you.
Thank you.
All 4 mayoral candidates who qualified for the ballot sat down with Arizona 360. We'll share those interviews in the coming weeks, starting with Democrat Regina Romero, the first Latina elected to City Council, who has represented Ward 1 since 2007. Tell me what you think is the biggest issue facing the city of Tucson.
I think it's climate. We live in a beautiful desert city, and climate change is happening throughout our world, and it's no different in Tucson. I think that one of the most important things we could do is put together a climate action plan and start acting boldly immediately. As the next mayor of the city of Tucson, that is going to be my homework from day one. We need to work with the University of Arizona, install much more solar installations throughout the city. We need to plant more than 2 million trees by 2030. We need to do massive water harvesting projects within our community. A sustainable, reliable, affordable, and electric bus system. And we need to take a look at climate as a public health issue as well. We are seeing more and more deaths in Arizona caused by heat-related illnesses. I have a whole list of important things we need to accomplish as a community, but first and foremost, we need to make sure that the city of Tucson is a sustainable city in our desert.
I recognize that you offer some very specific ways that you'd like to attack climate change. How, though, can a mayor really lead that change here in a community like this one and then really think of it on a much larger scale?
Well, the mayor has the bully pulpit, right? We set the vision for our city. And as a council member, I've been sitting on the council for almost 12 years, and I know exactly what pieces of the puzzle are missing. The mayor sets the vision. We work together with the region, not just the city of Tucson and mayor and council, but with the region, the Pima Association of Governments. We have to work with the state of Arizona, with the federal delegation, so that we can invest in infrastructure that will help us remain and continue being a sustainable and thriving city.
You're a longtime politician in some circles here in Tucson because you've been on the city council for some time now. What do you say to your opponents who are saying you don't quite have the other set of skills that are needed to lead a city that is growing, as many of you claim that it is?
I would say actually my time on the council, and even before I got elected more than 11 years ago, I've been a community activist. I've been a public servant all of my life, and I could have decided to do something completely different when I graduated from the University of Arizona. But it was a very clear choice for me to become a public servant. I know our budget in and out, every corner. I know our bureaucracy. I know our stakeholders in this community, both business and neighborhoods. I think it's actually a plus. I can take the wheel from Mayor Rothschild from day one and lead us into the prosperous, vibrant city that we are and that we need to move forward with.
If you're elected mayor, sanctuary cities could be a topic that you'll have to face. What are your thoughts on that matter?
I absolutely understand where the group that wrote this initiative wanted to go, right? I've led on the council. We led against SB 1070. Tucson became the first city in Arizona that took a position against SB 1070. As a matter of fact, we took the state to court along with other cities in the country. I've led on changing Tucson Police Department general orders to make sure that we protect victims and witnesses of crime from being asked their status. And so it's with great pain that I cannot support that initiative because there are threats from the state legislature in terms of pulling our state shared revenue from the city of Tucson if that initiative passes. We receive approximately $130 million a year in state shared revenue, money that Tucsonans send to the state that the state can confiscate. And so I cannot put our city at financial risk. I cannot do that.
Okay, thank you, Regina. Tune in each week to hear from all the candidates for mayor. We'll also feature their interviews online at azpm.org/Arizona360. That's all for now. Thanks for joining us. To share your feedback, visit us on social media or email us at arizona360@azpm.org. We'll see you next week.